the orbiting city of Kalara. 9 glittered against the blackness of space like a cluster of crystalline stars. Towering spires of metal and glass spiraled outward from a central hub, each home to the wealthiest and most influential elites of the Helioran species. Among them was Lady Sarathia Valnor, a striking figure whose reputation preceded her before even her footsteps touched the polished corridors of Kalara 9. She was brilliant, feared, and utterly resolute in her vow. She would never marry. The reasons were as old as her memory. Born into a family of political strategists, Sarathia had witnessed firsthand the marriages that bound clans for convenience, wealth, and power, but never love. Each alliance she had been offered was carefully calculated, yet hollow, a lifeless transaction disguised as union. From the very beginning, she had resolved to forge her path alone. Love was a luxury she would not afford herself. And then he arrived. It was during a diplomatic convention aboard the Aurora Spire, a station that hovered at the edge of Helioran space, that she first saw him, a human. Humans were rare beyond the Sol system, and most Heliorans considered them primitive, impulsive, and ill-suited for the calculated intricacies of interstellar diplomacy. Yet this one, he moved with an unfamiliar confidence, unburdened by centuries of rigid hierarchy. His eyes were a startling blue, and his presence, though not imposing, carried a magnetic warmth that made the meticulously controlled air of the spire feel almost breathable. His name was Commander Elias Kane, an officer in the United Earth Coalition Navy. Unlike the Heliorans, he did not bow with servile precision nor fill the room with rehearsed pleasantries. Instead, he spoke plainly, observed carefully, and smiled, just enough to suggest he found the pomp and grandeur around him amusing, but not threatening. Sarathia's first impression was dismissive. A human, she thought, a trivial creature with little understanding of power, strategy, or obligation. And yet, for reasons she did not yet understand, her attention lingered longer than etiquette demanded. The unlikely alliance. Weeks passed. The Aurora Spire became a crucible of tension, with negotiations for the Xyrillian Accord, an interstellar trade pact, stalling amid the competing interests of multiple species. Sarathia had been appointed as lead negotiator for the Helioran delegation, her mind as sharp as the ceremonial blade she carried in her personal chambers. Kane, by contrast, had been sent to observe. He was neither diplomat nor strategist, only a mediator tasked with ensuring the talks did not collapse into violence. Yet he moved among the delegates with an uncanny sense of timing. Where Sarathia would anticipate an attack, he anticipated hesitation. Where she would respond with logic, he responded with instinct. Their first real interaction was not cordial. Sarathia caught Kane in the delegation hall, quietly intercepting a Helioran envoy who was attempting to leak classified information to the Xyrillians. "You're interfering," Sarathia said, her voice both icy and sharp, her posture rigid. "I'm preventing a war," Kane replied simply, his eyes meeting hers without flinching. "You are human. You do not understand politics here." "Maybe. But I understand consequences." It was a simple exchange, but in that moment, something shifted. Sarathia realized that Kane's understanding of consequences was unlike anything she had seen in her species. He did not calculate for prestige, for lineage, for power. He calculated for life, human life, alien life, any life that mattered. It was refreshing, dangerous perhaps, but intoxicating. Growing tensions. Days turned into nights, without the conventional markers of time. The spire's artificial lights simulated cycles, but no cycle could shield Sarathia from the strange pull she felt toward the human. She caught herself seeking his counsel, seeking his insight, even when it conflicted with her own instincts. Kane, for his part, noticed the change too. He admired Sarathia's brilliance, her strategic mind, and, increasingly, the flashes of vulnerability she allowed no one else to see. There was a tension in their interactions, part admiration, part frustration, part something else. One evening, the spire was shaken by an attack from the Varadi raiders, a pirate fleet notorious for targeting diplomatic convoys. The Heliorans and humans scrambled to coordinate a defense. Sarathia found herself aboard the command bridge, giving orders with ruthless precision. Kane was there too, coordinating human and Helioran pilots with an ease that impressed even her. "Your calculations, they saved hundreds of lives," she admitted quietly when the attack subsided, her armor scorched, her robes singed at the edges. "And yours prevented the fleet from collapsing into chaos," Kane replied, offering her a grin that did not mock, did not tease, it was honest. For the first time in her life, Sarathia felt a tremor of doubt in her vow. Was it possible that a human, this one precisely, could stand beside her not out of obligation, but out of choice? A dangerous mission. Negotiations resumed after the attack, but whispers of a deeper conspiracy surfaced. A faction within the Helioran Council sought to manipulate the Xyrillian Accord to their own benefit, risking all-out war. Sarathia and Kane uncovered evidence that the conspirators had infiltrated multiple key positions, intending to assassinate delegates and blame outsiders. Together, they embarked on a covert mission to expose the plot. They traveled in stealth ships, navigating asteroid fields, pirate territories, and the shadowy reaches of unclaimed space. Their trust in one another grew not through conversation, but through reliance. In life-and-death situations, words were unnecessary. Instincts and actions spoke louder. During one harrowing escape from a blockade near the Varadi Nebula, Kane sustained an injury. Sarathia refused to leave him, carrying him through the narrow corridors of their ship while defending against boarding drones. For hours, she protected him, and for hours, he refused to let her take the lead in tending to her own wounds. "Why do you care so much?" Kane finally asked when they found a moment of silence, the stars outside their viewport glimmering like distant flames. Sarathia hesitated, her usual certainty faltering. "Because you make me feel that some things are worth more than duty, more than strategy. You remind me that life is a life." Kane smiled, faint but genuine. "I feel the same, Sarathia. And I think you're beginning to forget your vow." The turning point. The final confrontation with the conspirators occurred on the surface of Orithus Prime, a barren world turned secret military base. Sarathia and Kane infiltrated the facility, their synergy flawless. They disabled security systems, neutralized guards, and reached the central command chamber just as the Council's faction prepared to execute their plan. In the heat of combat, Sarathia realized she was fighting not just for duty, but for the life of the human beside her. Kane, in turn, was protecting her with an intensity he had reserved for no one else. When the dust settled, the conspirators were captured, the plot exposed, and the alliance secured. Standing in the aftermath, Sarathia looked at Kane. He bore scratches, bruises, but his gaze was unwavering. "You," she began, but words failed her. She had no formal ceremony, no strategic declaration, only the raw truth that had taken weeks to crystallize. "You saved me," Kane said softly, though it was more than physical survival he referred to. "And I'd do it again, Sarathia. Every time." Her hand brushed against his, tentative, almost shy. "Then perhaps vows are not always meant to be unbroken. Perhaps they are meant to guide us until something worth more appears." Kane's smile widened. "Worth more, huh? Then let's see how much more we can find together." A new dawn. Kalara, 9 celebrated the success of the Xyrillian Accord, the human commander now an unlikely hero among the Heliorans. Yet it was not titles, medals, or recognition that mattered most to Sarathia. It was the knowledge that she had discovered something her calculated life had never offered: trust, companionship, and a love she had believed impossible. In the months that followed, Sarathia and Cain were seen together often, not as symbols of a political alliance, but as partners who had earned one another's respect and devotion. The universe watched with curiosity and admiration. Heliorans whispered about the audacious human who had crossed their greatest strategist's path and won her heart. And Sarathia, once unwavering in her vow never to marry, no longer thought of herself as bound to that promise. She had chosen differently, not for duty, not for strategy, but for a human who taught her that life was not merely to be calculated, but lived. Their story became legend, a testament to the idea that strength was not measured solely in conquest or intellect, but in the courage to embrace the unexpected, the uncalculated, and the deeply human. In the cold expanse of space, amid alliances and betrayals, battles and intrigues, love had found a way. And for Lady Sarathia Valnor, that was more than enough. Months passed since the events on Orithus Prime. The Xyrillian Accord was fully ratified, binding multiple star systems in trade, security, and cooperation. Kalara 9 had become the epicenter of interstellar diplomacy, yet Sarathia and Cain rarely allowed their duties to overshadow the bond that had formed between them. Despite her elite status, Sarathia walked the corridors of Kalara 9 differently now. The once rigid lines of her posture had softened. When she spoke, her words carried warmth, even humor, a stark contrast to the cold, imperious tone she had perfected over decades. It was subtle, but everyone noticed. Heliorans whispered not just about her victories and strategy, but about the human who had crossed her path and changed her. Cain remained a paradoxical presence in her life, a human who defied every expectation, yet fits seamlessly into the intricate machinery of Helioran politics. Together, they hosted diplomatic gatherings, blending human candor with Helioran elegance. Guests often marveled at their dynamic, Sarathia's sharp mind complemented by Cain's instinctive insight, her caution tempered by his courage. They were more than partners, they were equals, in every sense. One evening, as the twin moons of Kalara 9 rose over the crystalline spires, Cain led Sarathia to the observation deck overlooking the city. The wind simulated by the station's artificial environment ruffled her hair, and the glow of the moons reflected in her eyes. Sarathia, Cain began, voice soft but certain. I've crossed galaxies, survived battles, and faced enemies I never imagined. But nothing has been more terrifying than imagining a life without you in it. Sarathia's usual composure faltered. Her hand instinctively found his. You've already changed everything about me, she admitted. You've shown me that life isn't a series of calculations, but a series of choices. Choices worth making, even if they defy every vow I ever took. Cain smiled, reaching into the folds of his uniform. From it, he produced a small, intricately designed device, a Helioran crystal encased in human-engineered alloy. This isn't just a symbol, he said. It's a promise. Not of duty, not of obligation, but of partnership. I choose you, Sarathia Valnor. Will you choose me? For a moment, the silence of space seemed to press against them. The stars twinkled with the weight of countless civilizations, but all Sarathia felt was the gravity of this moment. She thought of the vows she had taken, not to this human, but to herself. And she realized that some vows were meant to guide a life, while others could be rewritten by love, courage, and trust. Yes, she whispered, her voice trembling with conviction. I choose you. The device glowed softly, responding to their intertwined energies, a symbol not of royalty, not of conquest, but of unity. Cain slipped it into her hand, and in that moment, everything shifted. They were no longer a negotiator and a mediator, no longer a Helioran and a human. They were partners, bound by choice, respect, and affection. A future together. News of their bond spread across the Helioran territories and the human colonies alike. While some were skeptical, many were inspired. A union not born of duty or politics, but of mutual respect and understanding. The story of Sarathia Valnor and Elias Cain became legendary, a tale told in classrooms, council chambers, and even in human training simulations. Together, they embarked on new missions, diplomatic, scientific, and humanitarian, bridging the cultural and technological gaps between species. Helioran scientists marveled at Cain's unconventional problem-solving, while humans learned the art of strategy and patience from Sarathia. Their collaboration saved countless lives, prevented wars, and cemented the fragile peace of multiple star systems. Yet, amidst the grandeur of politics and diplomacy, there were quieter moments. Shared meals in observation decks, walks along the simulated beaches of Kalara. 9. Conversations that stretched long into artificial nights. In these moments, the galaxy receded, leaving only two beings who had chosen one another against all odds. The ultimate test. Years later, a new threat emerged, a rogue fleet from beyond the Orithis expanse, armed with technology capable of dismantling entire planetary defenses. The Helioran and human fleets scrambled, and Sarathia was once again called upon to lead. Cain insisted on fighting alongside her. I've chosen you, he said, in peace and in war. You don't face this alone. During the battle, Sarathia and Cain moved with perfect synchronicity. Helioran ships executed maneuvers Cain suggested, and human fighters adapted to Sarathia's strategies. Together, they turned what could have been a catastrophic defeat into a decisive victory. As the dust of battle settled, Sarathia looked at Cain, sweat and grime marking both of their faces. You make me better, she said softly. And you make me brave, he replied. It was a truth deeper than any vow, deeper than politics or duty. They were stronger together, not because they were flawless, but because they had chosen each other. Every day, in every challenge. Epilogue. A love beyond stars. In the years that followed, Sarathia and Cain's partnership became emblematic of a new era. They married, not in the traditional Helioran fashion, but in a ceremony that blended human intimacy with Helioran elegance, attended by both species and the allies they had inspired. Sarathia's vow never to marry was no longer a limitation, but a testament to her discernment. She had refused the hollow alliances of convenience, only to find a love forged in respect, courage, and choice. Cain had crossed galaxies, not to claim her, but to walk beside her. And in doing so, he had rewritten the very definition of loyalty, love, and partnership in the galaxy. And so, under the twin moons of Kalara, 9, amid a galaxy that had once seemed vast and impersonal, two beings, one Helioran, one human, proved that even in the cold expanse of space, hearts could find each other, unbound by expectation, unbroken by tradition, and unstoppable in their unity. The stars themselves seemed to celebrate, reflecting in the eyes of Sarathia Valnor as she whispered, I vowed never to marry until you crossed my path. Cain took her hand, squeezed it gently, and replied, and I'll cross every path, every galaxy, every challenge, just to stay by yours. In that moment, the galaxy was no longer a vast, indifferent void. It was a home because they had found each other.